Joe, welcome. We appreciate you being a part of Race Industry Week, and obviously a company, so deeply rooted in motorsports as well. Just to have you a part of this, but piston failure analysis is at least the topic of today, and I'm sure there are a lot of things we could chat about. And if you do have a question, you could always type it into the chat, and we'll talk about that as well. But Joe, give us a little overview of what you had in mind today.
Sure. So for those that aren't familiar with MAHLE Motorsport, the North American division was founded in 2000. We make our pistons and manufacture our pistons in Morristown, Tennessee. We work with several of the elite professional race teams that are out there, a lot of professional engine builders. And through that course of time, we started developing a shelf stock piston set called Power Pack that enthusiasts all over the world can purchase and buy for their hot rod or for their car that they're racing on the weekends or that they're doing time attack with. So going to kind of take you through how we take what we learn from those applications that come in potentially that a customer had a problem with, but also some applications that we're having success with and how we improve it and get that back into the hands of the customer, and taking a lot of the knowledge base that we have with the staff that work here to translate that into ongoing improvement of the product.
Yeah, and it's wonderful, especially if you can help the people who are using the product and all of that. Let me phrase this question in this way, Joe. There are times where you can have a failure, and there are times where someone can fail the part. Meaning maybe they've done a little too much on this end or a little too little on that end, and that's what causes the part to fail. Can you maybe describe the difference between the two and as it relates to what we're talking about?
Yeah, and actually I have a short PowerPoint that we can go through and visually see a lot of that, because what typically happens is the piston is, it's your boxing mitt, right? It's the one taking all the contact. And when there's a failure, it's the first thing, you take off the cylinder head and you look at that piston, and people automatically think, well, the piston failed. And that's where our application engineers and our design engineers come into play, where they will actually get back parts and have to essentially, almost like a crime scene, reconstruct what occurred and what happened to figure out what was the root of this cause, what was the failure that actually did occur. Because to a lot of people, if you're a racer or if you're not entirely familiar with different situations that are out there that can cause problems with the pistons, you may just look at it and go, well, these pistons, they're just not up to snuff. It's just not what we need. We need something different. When in a lot of cases, it's actually other factors. It could be detonation. It could be scuffing. It could be running the engine hot for too long. Things of that matter that we can actually, deconstruct, write a report, get it back to the team, get it back to the engine builder, help them understand better what occurred, and then allow them to make the corrective actions going forward.
All right. Did you want to share your screen with the PowerPoint here, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see.
All right.
We'll just go into reading view here, and can you see the screen?
We can. Thank you.
Okay. So this is something that I discussed last year during the week. And I just wanted to bring it back and kind of as a refresher. This is a small block Ford dirt late model, had a catastrophic single piston failure after 35 laps. So this is something that our engineers are going to get in the mail, and this is an extreme case, and it's going to be asked what happened to the piston. And you look at this and it just looks like a gigantic, jigsaw puzzle, really. I mean, it's just, where do you start? But that's where piece by piece, you start looking at different things that occurred in line with, certain potential things that, maybe we have some things that are actually intact here. So if you look on the left-hand side, you have a wrist pin clip that's in the form of a C. And over on the right-hand side, where you see the chunks of material, you kind of see a square right there. And what was determined was actually they found the two pieces of square that were part of the forging. And what had occurred was a wrist pin clip was not inserted correctly, and the pin started working its way out. And when it worked its way out, it started flexing back and forth, and it knocked off those two pieces that are highlighted in red right there. So that's just one example of, here, figure this out. Essentially, what I have to explain to my customer what happened, and I need to understand what occurred, and we'll from there advise the builder or team or whatever, in an extreme case like this is what occurred.
Yeah, it
And
looks
then
pretty
secondly here, this is a small block Chevy Sportsman circle track. It had 2 dyno poles, did 25 to 30 laps on a 3/8 oval. And again, we'll get this, what went wrong, what occurred here. You can see the 2 circlips up top, and while it's similar to what we had previously, where you saw those circlips there, as we dive deeper and deeper into it, we actually received the connecting rod with that, which gives our engineers more material to work with. We dive a little bit deeper into it, and we see that, okay, we've got, a crack that occurred in the connecting rod bolt, and basically we've got a zone where it's starting to bend, and basically the connecting rod bolt was installed not to spec, and it worked its way loose, and then through forces of nature it broke apart, caused the catastrophic failure. So typically what we do receive is a lot of the times just the pistons, but we had a case last week where we did get sent the connecting rod. It adds to the story of what happened. It paints the picture to allow people, a greater understanding of maybe what did occur if you did have a connecting rod failure, to take everything into account.
Mm-hmm.
And going into it here, these are typical simple examples of not necessarily failures, but you're not having, the piston, work at optimal levels, right? You've got dirt, debris, contamination that might be in there that can be caused by, if you're working in an off-road type of environment, racing in Baja or, out west, where you get a lot of dust and debris that's coming into your air filter, then working its way, into the engine, where you would typically, have the potential for something like this happening, to, skirt scuffing, overheating. An example of this would be, the guy on the racetrack that he sees, he's got 5 laps to go left in the race, and he sees that he's overheating, and he says, I think I can make this, I need to make this. And, we've all seen that situation. If you've been in racing, that, I can make it there. I'll be okay. And this is an extreme, instance where they had a lot of scuffing, and what it can potentially lead to in the aftermath is the engine's hard to start. It has a little bit of noise to it. It's not going to work as well as it did before, because the piston expanded so much that it started, scuffing into the wall of the cylinder.
Are those distortions like in the ring grooves? Is that what or is that just maybe the way the picture looks from where I'm
That's actual distortion in the ring grooves. So it expanded so much that if you look right there, it looks like it's been like pinched.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, and then that adds into, where now you've got basically a ring that isn't floating properly and operating correctly. It's stuck in one position, and that also adds to performance being below level of what you're actually looking for.
Wow.
So that it just reminds me all the time of that perfect situation of just, that guy on the racetrack, and his temperature is sky high, but hey, he wants to get that 3rd place or 1st place check, or he's got a win hanging on. So what do you do? And in the extreme cases, this is something that can happen or occur. A case like this, insufficient clearance, probably an extreme example of this, where you typically will have this where a novice builder or somebody who looks at the numbers incorrectly, they look at the numbers for the clearance of their cylinder, and they're doing it before they're receiving the pistons, or they're just not checking the piston to wall clearance correctly, and they install them. And this is an extreme case of the clearance is completely incorrect. the piston is rubbing against the cylinder wall and it's causing a potential failure to the engine. And again, pretty extreme case. A lot of times what we'll see is, cases where you do get some rubbing on the piston skirt more than another side, or different instances of just not it operating correctly. But just wanted to show something that was pretty extreme here that we've seen over the years.
Now, is that something that would show up on like a first dyno pull? I mean, how quickly does that start to show the ugly side?
Yeah, I would say yes. Yeah, I would say yes to that. Or in a situation where you're building up heat and everything's at optimal temperature and it's not operating correctly. So you're dealing with, essentially a lot of times two different types of forging piston material, which is everything that we pretty much sell, minus what we do with diesel, which would be, cast in that arena. But a majority of what we're looking at here is a 4032 alloy. So 4032 alloy, it doesn't expand as much. 2618 expands more, and it's more optimal for power adders, things where you're going to throw a lot of boost to it. A lot of, I wouldn't say all the time higher horsepower applications, but applications where you are going to have the potential for turbos and power adders at an extreme level with 2618. And because it expands more, if it gets too hot, or if it's in a situation where the clearance is incorrect and it expands too much, then you can incur a situation like this.
Okay.
And I think that's something that we've really tried to educate our customers on, is those differences between the two alloys. I mean, they'll call us up and, it's 4032 and it's 2618, and they're now able to acknowledge and have that discussion with us. Whereas before, I think it was a little bit more of a mystery, and it wasn't as far out there. But it's vitally important when you're making a selection for your application to choose the correct piston. I mean, you don't want to take a 4032 piston. And we have this happen all the time. The guy gets a set of pistons from an engine that he purchased secondhand, opens it up, sees the part number that's on there, calls us up, and he says, hey, I want to put, 20 pounds of boost to this piston. And we look up the information on it, and it's made out of a 4032 material. And the conversation from there is you're playing with fire. And we advise you not to do that. Well, why? It's a forged piston, isn't it? Yes, it's a forged piston, but the material structure of the piston is different. Okay. And the two arenas that you're in with the 4032 and the 2618, they react differently to those outside forces of, high amounts of nitrous, high amounts of, turbos, anything like that you're throwing at it. It's going to react differently. So it's very important to look at a project when you're working on it and check on that. I cannot stress that enough to builders, customers that are out there, people that are trying to build their own, engines themselves. Take a second if you're in that situation and check and make sure all the materials that you're working with, not just the pistons, but everything that you're looking at, is this going to work correctly for my application? Or am I basically spending a lot of money on something that is going to not work correctly down the road?
Mm-hmm.
So
it's an amazing common theme here at Race Industry Week or Race Industry Now, especially when we talk to about engine internals, about the, what are you going to do? What are you going to add to it? And just how important that is.
Yes, it's so important. And we've done a lot to, and I'll get to this in a second about, educating the racer, but, here's an example: faulty combustion, pre-ignition, they have the wrong fuel. Something like this, it's not initially going to show up. You can always tell that this is going on. If it's just something that's happening to the surface and abusing to the top ringland of the piston. But, we get, it's asked, what have we seen a lot in this past year? We often get something like this, detonation, where basically you're seeing the top ringland. It looks like somebody took a torch to it up there. And what's occurring there is the timing is off. It's getting too much fuel. There's fuel that's left over. You might have the wrong spark plugs. A lot of different factors go into this, and we often get it, and they'll ask, what is wrong? My engine is not operating correctly. I don't understand. And can you help us? Can you advise? And it's really in the process of having the engine work correctly, and then getting them to check everything and understand what occurred here, where is it wrong, and then advise them to get back onto the correct road of where they need to be. Broken ring lands. Typically I had another example where, and we run in this a lot, more and more customers, in post-pandemic purchasing are doing, the engine builds themselves, and they don't understand always how to do the ring gaps. Okay. Or they're thinking that they don't even have to gap their rings. They just get them, and put them into the engine. And typically what you can have happen is, if a ring land is making contact and they have the wrong ring gap, well, that creates energy, and that energy has to go somewhere, and it's going to find that weak spot if it's doing that. Because, if you think about it, in revolutions per minute, how many up and down and all of that's occurring, that energy is building, and it finds that weak spot. And sometimes that weak spot is actually a ring land where it breaks off. So they look down into the engine and they go, this ring land broke. They didn't make it correctly. I mean, these pistons are junk. What happened here? We get the call, we get the box, and we start looking at things. We have the rings, and we've had a couple instances where that has occurred. And it's, again, taking the time to make sure that you have everything correct before you do the assembly process, because it's not plug and play. It's application specific, and you have to consider all the different things that you're doing. There's different ring gaps for applications that are naturally aspirated versus something that is going to be with nitrous or a racing application, okay, in which you would have more ring gap in that type of situation. So we send out instructions with every power pack that we sell, and every private label, we're working with those builders. But it's vitally important that the builder, whoever it might be, if they're not familiar with the product, take a moment, make sure they're doing it correctly, because you just don't want to have catastrophic failures, especially from an engine building standpoint. In my situation, I was fortunate enough to manage a small engine shop. And the one thing I never wanted to have happen was to have an engine come back through the door, right? You always want to have it leaving. You never want to actually see your customer again. Customer says, hey, I'll see you later. And I would always say, I hope not, and in the sense of, I want to see you out at the racetrack. I want to see you having fun out at, but I don't want to see you here at this office for a long time, because that means that, something did not go correctly. Right. And in extreme cases like this right here, melted, excessive combustion temperatures, something like this right here is your tune's not correct. You've had something extreme happen in, regards to heat. And all of this that I discussed right here that we've talked about comes to our staff. Our staff looks at all these different instances of what occurred over the years. They build a database of that information. It's all compiled. I read every single one that our engineers write up, and it comes over. And I will tell you, before I walked through this door here 4 years ago, I thought I knew engines. I thought I had seen some things, I thought. And when I came here, I realized I don't know anything. I mean, just throw it all out the window, because what these guys are doing and what they're looking at it's just such a strong base of knowledge. And the reason for that is, and I'm going to show you our staff right here. And in parentheses, these are years that they've worked at MAHLE Motorsport. Okay, so I've got 2 pages here. So if we were to look at, Brad has 25 years. Eric has 19. Brandon has 15. George is starting on his 2nd year. On the sales and customer service side, we've got Jason with 20, Dale's 20, and Adam took over as our sales and tech, but he brings a wealth of knowledge with him. He's been here for a year and a half. And again, we look at our design engineers. All right. They've been here for 18 years with Rodney. Doug, he's been here for 37 years. Brian's new. He's starting a second year. Justin's been with us for 9. I've been with the company for 4. But my point is, you take these individuals with all their knowledge and everything that they're seeing, working with the OEs, working with professional race teams, taking all of this knowledge, and then, we sit here often and it's like, well, how can we help out the racer that's out there, or the engine builder that's first getting into it, that may want to buy our parts for the next 10 years because they're starting up a business. So what we've tried to do is to educate the racer. And this is a 2-page article that was in Speedway Illustrated in October, basically taking a lot of the information that you saw right there and compiling it into a 4-page article that circle track racers who get that magazine can read, look at, and try to educate a little bit more about what might occur in their engine failure. That it's just not always that the piston isn't good enough, that there is a reason why behind this and what has occurred. So a lot of that is very important to us. Yes, right now, a lot of our staff are working with professional race teams on trying to get ready for the next season and whatever endeavor that they're going into. But we also want to put as much knowledge as we can into the enthusiast hands that's out there to help them have a great time at the racetrack, understand what's going on with their application, whether it be circle track racing, drag racing, time attack, hot rodding, whatever it might be.
I think the article is fantastic, especially in illustrating what can happen and why. How about getting ahead of it? You mentioned all the people that you have and the resources that you have. If I'm doing a build for whatever my specific thing is, are the phones open to be able to call up and say, hey, here's what I'm looking at doing. What do you recommend?
Correct. Yeah. So yes, we are available. Our sales team is here Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can call us at 888-255-1942. We can also be reached online at mahlemotorsports.com. You can type in MAHLE into Google or MAHLE Motorsport into Google. We come right up. There's contact information at the bottom of the page, whether it be for sales or for tech or just regular customer service. And I really think that that's probably the most important part that I can stress in the post-pandemic world to have is really good customer service, because more than ever, you have individuals that are, buying parts from, it could be Summit Racing or JEGS or another distributor, and they've got questions and they want to get the right answers. They've gone to that forum and they've typed in their question and they receive, 20 different answers, and they're not quite comfortable with what they're reading there. So, we are here, and, anybody that wants to discuss with us the situation that they're going through, they have the question. We get, I don't know how many calls a day, a lot, but it's always gosh, thank you for picking up the phone and talking to me, and going through that. But I will tell you, on the other side of it, it's not always about, a piston failure. We do have a piston and ring evaluation for improvement. And this is a big block Chevy Elite Sportsman Drag Series piston set. And the gentleman who had this, he emailed us and said, hey, I love your product. They're working great, really enjoying what came out of it. And I'd like to get another set. And, just sent a quick note over to Eric Grillo about how well it's doing. And Eric made the point to me, he goes, get them back, get them over here. And I said, okay. He goes, how many times do we have the opportunity to sit down and take a look at, what is going right? Most times guys have them in their motor and everything's just fine. And we're doing well. Here's an opportunity with the big block Chevy Sportsman series pistons that we had come out probably about 4 years ago, and really take a look at them and see what's going on with them. And in this instance here, we received them, we looked at it, had a little bit of advice, after doing a hardness test, looking at it, and just gave some simple recommendations on it. And, the gentleman's got it in his Nova. And, the young man is Michael Koonsman, who owns a sales company called Koonsman and Associates, who reps a lot of different brands, including ours, to a lot of different WDs. And at 80 years old, he won the Motor City Muscle Challenge this past year. And it was, through going through this process of saying, hey, these pistons look good, sending them into us, evaluating them, and then saying, Michael, everything looks good, but, just consider this, and then finishing out the rest of the season with another set that he had. And there you go. And it's just, that is the perfect success story of what a lot of it's really about. I mean, everybody looks at piston failures, and yes, we do have that occur, but there's also a lot of times where working with professional teams that we're getting pistons back in for a simple checkup, and making sure that we're on the right track, that we're always improving, and that we're going down the right road with everything. So I wanted to make that point because I think a lot of times people think we just have a lot of failures that are coming in, when actually that's not true. What we do have a majority of the time is situations like this where things are going right, and we just want to check it, make sure it's correct. But I'll just finish up real quick. This is a small block Chevy dish piston, and this is, technology that's, 50, 60 years old. And our engineers looked at it from all the stuff we're learning on the racing side and actually improved it, made it even better. And we came out with a new forging. We've had it for 2 years now. And, you look at the dark blue areas and you see there, that's where, we add a little bit more meat to it to, just basically improve its overall performance. So it's not always about something that we're working with a professional race team. It's something that could be, something that enthusiasts are using, or in this case right here, with on the left-hand side with USRA, that's a sanctioning body that runs on dirt out here in the Midwest. And we made a piston for their sanctioning body specific to it. So that way they have something in line with their rule book and what they require. And on the right-hand side, we're working with a lot of different elements that are out there, whether it be with ETS or, somebody like Tim Hall that's in Southeast Gassers, or Nick Hoffman with his dirt racing, Von Gittin with off-road. So there's a lot of things out there that we work with and that we look at, and we try to get it out there in the sense of what we call a power pack for that customer that can go buy it off the shelf.
Joe, that's wonderful. What a great education as well. We appreciate you sharing that. And, it's obvious why MAHLE has been around for so long, and everything that you guys continue to do in support of the motorsport industry. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just jump in here and say it was really interesting to see all the people, all the years of experience behind your brand. And,
it's amazing. Yeah, when you really look at it and all that knowledge that they have.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. And I just want to personally thank you. You're one of the first suppliers that jumped on this business to business platform. So I want to thank you for that too.
Yeah, it's been great. We really appreciate you guys putting this all together for the industry this week. And I hope the rest of the week continues to go well.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Registering on Epar Trade is easy. To start, click on the Join for Free button on the homepage. First, search your company to see if it's already in our database. If you see your company on the list, click on it to select it. Then, choose Claim Company if you are one of the decision makers, an owner, marketing person, or main company contact. Or choose Join Company if you are an employee, and press Continue. If you couldn't find your company in our database, select Register a New Company. On the following page, fill out your name, email, phone number, job title, and choose a secure password. If you chose Register a New Company, you'll need to choose your business type. Select Supplier if you're looking to display products or services and connect with buyers. Choose Racing Business if you're looking to source new parts and connect with suppliers. Choose Race Team if you own or are a member of a professional race team. Then, enter your company name. Please provide a website, Facebook page, or LinkedIn if you have one, and choose to either claim or join the company. You can view and agree to our terms of use here. If you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, choose Accept. Finally, click Register Now and your registration will be submitted for approval. An email will be sent to your inbox. Please confirm your email address and you will be approved shortly. Welcome to Epar Trade.